Well, here we are again. Another hurricane season started in June and finishes up in, what time does it finish up?
November, sir.
November, the end of November.
Yes, sir.
So we got a lot of space between now and then. It's beautiful outside, but we never know when that's going to change. And I want to say a number of things very quickly before we hear from some others. And that is, we have a great team. We've been through this before. We're highly experienced. We've got the best talent, the best equipment, and the experience really does matter. And we're as prepared as we can be. And our job is to see that all of us here on the government side work with everyone else seamlessly to try to do a number of things. And the most important is to keep everyone informed of what it's all about. We have a lot of new residents. We have a lot of visitors. There'll be a lot of people will be visiting this area, the Tri-County area, during those times. And some of them have never seen a hurricane before or a big storm. And a lot of us, I think all of us here have. And I remember specifically in Hugo, I think that's the biggest one we've had with winds of over 135 miles an hour. And I remember going through McClellanville sometime after that, and the shrimp boats were way up in the woods, and it was really something to see. And until you see the power of that, a lot of us can't remember how bad it was, and a lot of us have never seen one before. So we have to be sure that our citizens are informed. And what we have to do is to be sure to get the information out to them of what to do before, during, and after a hurricane. Before, during, and after. A lot of people forget about the after. A lot of people think that once the wind quits blowing and the water starts going down, that they can come on back and go home. That is not so. Sometimes it takes days, sometimes longer than that, to get the power turned back on, to get the debris out of the road, and there'll be critters and puddles of water and various materials have been floating around that used to be in septic systems that aren't anymore. There are a lot of things that need to be done before people will be able to go back. Next point is to tell everyone to please be prepared. The Department of Emergency Management has websites with tons of information on it, and we would urge all citizens to access that, and also to pick up the storm guides that are available in various places around the state. I think that, where are they, Ken?
They're Walgreens, Coastal DMV offices, Welcome Centers.
Welcome Centers.
They were distributed through the newspaper system.
Yeah, and that's a great book. It's a pamphlet. It's got all the information you need. But we ask everybody to be prepared, just like the Boy Scouts. Be prepared. Get your pills, your pits, your papers, and when the time comes, be ready to proceed orderly outside of the zone of danger. It's too late once the wind starts blowing and the water starts coming up. It's too late to start doing all of that. I remember the words of some great general or some great leader in history said that the history of failure in warfare can be summed up in two words: too late. Well, safety in one of these zones with one of these hurricanes can be summed up in those two words as well: too late. So now, before it happens, now's the time to get prepared. So with that, I would like to ask Lieutenant Colonel Manley of the Department of Public Safety to come forward.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon. I'm Travis Manley. I'm Lieutenant Colonel with the South Carolina Highway Patrol. And each year, SCDPS works closely with SEMD, South Carolina Department of Transportation, and other local and state officials to ensure that hurricane operations go as planned. We know in the past years that preparation is key, but also is communication, which we can't thank you enough for getting that word out. We want to ensure the public knows in advance how to swiftly and safely move away from the coast when there is a threat. Our goal in the event of evacuation is to ensure that most efficient distribution of traffic through the evacuation zones is critical. We can't load I-26. I-26 is not set up to handle all traffic for evacuation. So When you hear the word evacuations, most people's ears go to I-26. But there are 35 additional evacuation routes in the state. And our job, along with locals and other state officials, is to make sure that there's an even distribution of that traffic. And the way to do that is for the public, for one, know their zone, two, know their routes, and stay up to speed on social media with all the state resources. I would also remind motorists of the importance of following the blue signs on our evacuation routes. Please do not follow your GPS. GPS will take you away from these routes. So most of the time, your GPS is going to take you to the shortest route. In this case, you don't need to go to the shortest route. You need to stay on the route that's designated for you and your zone. Our troopers and officers will work with other state and local officers within the state, also with National Guard, to ensure that the traffic stays on these designated routes. There's also a continuous monitoring of traffic through air assets, through traffic cameras, through traffic counters, and also in addition, we have line patrols out there that will be monitoring each of these routes. As it will be communicated here in a few minutes, hurricane.sc is a vital resource for the public in the event for hurricane preparation and deployment. You'll also see the hurricane traffic management link that addresses the questions and concerns anyone maybe have when it comes to doing an evacuation. I cannot emphasize enough, I think the word here is make sure that you prepare now, know your route, and remember your route. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. And I want to emphasize what he said, and that is there's been a lot of work done to determine which are the best routes, the safest routes for the people to take. And please, everyone, go to official sources that are giving you the information. Do not follow your GPS, as he said, but go to official sources, and don't believe what everybody happens to say on social media about the secret route to get you out quicker, if you know, all that kind of stuff, because we've had tragedies with that kind of information. It's all over the place every time we have one of these. So be careful where you're getting your information from, and be sure it's official. And Justin Powell, Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Governor. Justin Powell, Chief of Staff for the South Carolina Department of Transportation. The 4,000 men and women of SCDOT stand ready for hurricane season with our partners at Highway Patrol, Emergency Management Division, as well as our local government partners. And we're ready to respond to any hurricane that threatens the South Carolina coast. Like the Highway Patrol, we've spent the past several months preparing for hurricane season. That includes making sure all 35 evacuation routes are signed and ready to go. We're checking, double checking, triple checking our traffic cameras and our message boards so that we can monitor traffic flow before an evacuation order, and if an evacuation order is done by Governor McMaster, we'll be able to monitor that flow of traffic out of the metropolitan area. And then finally, we're making sure that our team is prepared. Later this week, we will be drilling with our partners at the Highway Patrol a simulated reversal of I-26 coming out of the Charleston area so that the team knows what they need to do when the time comes. We're ready for hurricane season, and it's important that our residents are ready for hurricane season. And so we encourage folks to know where they would go in an evacuation and to figure out a route ahead of time for that. A handy tool for folks to use is the 511 SC app. It can be downloaded for free on Apple or Google. It has all of the evacuation routes on it. It also has real-time traffic information available so that you can monitor where to go. It's useful even in your day-to-day commute around here in the Charleston area as well. All of this information is also available on our website, scdot.org. Hurricanes are an unfortunate fact of life for the privilege to live in paradise that we call South Carolina, but having a plan, knowing where you're going to go, is the best way to keep your family safe during a hurricane. With our partners in Highway Patrol, local government, and EMD, SCDOT is ready to help residents get out of harm's way if a natural disaster comes their way. And residents should be assured that DOT will be ready to respond and recover to clean up our communities and rebuild should a natural disaster hit South Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Kim Stinson, Director of the Emergency Management Division.
Thank you, Governor. Yeah, Kim Stinson, EMD.
Just as we are getting ready for hurricane season this year, we're asking all the residents at home to do the same. That's a common thread, what you've heard already. Everyone should take the time right now to visit our dedicated hurricane website, hurricane.sc, which is essentially an online hurricane guide that you're very familiar with, that we've had in many of these past years. But basically, it's very interactive, and it'll allow you to get prepared for hurricane season. Our annual printed edition of the 2023 Hurricane Guide was distributed throughout newspapers from the coast back to Columbia during the month of May. It's also on our website. It's also on our Emergency Manager app, so you shouldn't have any problems getting it. Printed copies were also supplied to coastal DMV offices, welcome centers, and Walgreens throughout the state. So I'd like to take just a minute to emphasize that the entire state is susceptible to hurricane force winds and excessive rainfall, and we've seen that here in the recent past. And anywhere in South Carolina is susceptible to flash flooding, and we need to take that very seriously when those warnings and announcements are made. So if there's a evacuation or flood warning issued, make sure you have a plan to leave. You've heard that several times already this afternoon. Last point I wanted to make is we're asking our residents to help us refine some of our plans for hurricane evacuation. We've got good plans, but they're always in need of refinement. And so this year we've debuted a survey, an online survey, to help us better gauge resident evacuation behavior. And we ask you to take a look at that. There's a QR code in the Hurricane Guide that'll allow you to access it. Also going to access through our Emergency Manager app, and then also at our website at scemd.org. So that survey will help us help you get better prepared in the future. So we appreciate the assistance on that. And in closing, we just encourage all our residents to get ready for the 2023 hurricane season.